Are all of your SOPs written in an old binder like this? Let's be honest. If your SOPs are living in a binder, no one is using them, no one is looking at them, and that is the exact reason why many important things keep falling through the cracks. Have you had any closings recently where you forgot to ask for a review? By the time you remembered, 3 months has gone by and it doesn't feel appropriate to ask the client anymore? I'm sure you would never do that, but maybe you know an agent like that? Or how about this one? I know this one I'm for sure guilty of. Do you have any lock boxes that got left on old listings that never got removed? So today we're going to take your SOPs and we are going to move them into the modern AI era and build something that's actually interactive that you can use, that is going to actually help you track whether everything is getting done and help hold your team accountable to make sure all the little things like the review requests and the lock boxes don't get skipped. Additionally, if you follow this workflow, you're going to learn how to take any SOP that you have and turn it into an interactive workflow that your team can actually follow. So we're going to be focusing today on closing protocol. What are all the little tasks and things that need to happen after you have had a closing? But once you understand the workflow, once you understand the logic of how to create and build this, you will be able to do this with any of your SOPs in your entire business. I do want to clarify that this workflow really is only going to work if you're using Google and Gmail or a Google Workspace account. I really didn't design this with any other systems in mind, so sorry if you're an Outlook user or a different email service provider. This is really Google Workspace only. So buckle up and let's go jump into this workflow. This is a very different build than anything that we have done in the past. We're going to be using a new tool called Google Apps Script, and I can't wait to show you how it's going to help you automate more things in your business. In the description of this video, we have a link to a Google Drive folder that is going to share these two files with you. The first is our setup guide, and the second item is a bunch of code that we're going to come back to in a few minutes. If you are already familiar with Claude and also some of our workflows in the past, and you've also used Google Apps Script before, you probably don't need to watch this video. Just follow our setup guide. I would recommend coming into the Google Drive folder, clicking the three dots, click download. You have to download it. If you just double click it, you will not be able to see it. Once the file is downloaded, click it again, and it will open as an interactive guide that you can scroll through and follow the steps. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a new Google Sheet. I would recommend naming the Google Sheet Closing Protocol or some other way that identifies this as your SOP for what happens once you've closed on a client. Then you're going to go to Extensions, Apps Script. The default screen it lands on once you get to Apps Script is this right here. Go ahead and delete those 4 lines of code that appear right there. Come back into the Google Drive folder and double click to open this Closing Protocol GS file to copy and paste. This is a very large document with a bunch of code that's going to format a Google Sheet for you that is going to include a whole bunch of automations that's going to allow us to automatically trigger things like review requests or reminders to your transaction coordinator or an assistant of things that need to happen once you've had a closing. This all make more sense once you see the sheet that this is going to create for you. So my recommendation would be to highlight all of the text that you have here. Go ahead and copy that. Then come back to this app script and paste it. Then click Save. After you've clicked Save, right here on this drop down where it says On Open, click that and change it to say Setup and then say Run. After you click Run, you are going to get a dialog box that pops up asking for authorization. Go ahead and click Review Permissions, and you're going to get to 2 screens here where you have to approve the permissions that the sheet needs to be able to read and send email addresses in order for this workflow to work. Go ahead and approve all of those and say Continue. After you click Continue, it's going to take you back to this screen, and you're going to wait for a while for this part right here that says Execution Completed. So as you can see on my computer, it only took about 12 seconds. The exciting part about that is now an entire spreadsheet has been built. So come back to the spreadsheet that we created. You can actually close this apps script editor part. We don't need that anymore, but you come back to this spreadsheet and boom, now it is all filled out with a bunch of really helpful information of things that you need to do. And I'm going to walk you through each tab and what they all do, but let's just start with some of the setup. Go ahead and put in your name and email address on lines 4 and 5. Then in step 2, where it's asking for who are your people, this is asking anyone on your team who you plan on assigning a task to. Maybe you want them to be responsible for picking up a lockbox or for requesting a review or for updating information in the CRM. If they're the type of person that they would be responsible for completing any of these tasks, then we need them on this list with their name and their email address. Since I'm doing this as a sample, I'm not going to put my real team on here because I don't want them to start receiving a bunch of email notifications of tasks that they need to complete. So for the sample, I will use real names, but for the email addresses, I'm only going to use mine so that all of the emails that fire come to me and you'll actually get to see what they all look like. And you are going to want to put your sales agents on here unless your sales team is not responsible for completing any of the closing protocol tasks. Then scroll down past all of the space where you can enter more team members. And in step 3, there is a section for you to put a link to any of the review platforms that you would like to request reviews on. I provided Google and Zillow in the example, but if you want to ask for reviews on Yelp or LinkedIn or anywhere else, feel free to add those links, and you can add multiple sources if you want to ask for reviews from multiple sources. Let me go ahead and add my links for Google and Zillow. Once you are done adding the links for your Google and Zillow and Yelp and any other sources that you might want to include in your review request emails, I recommend coming over to this review email. This is the actual email that is going to send to your clients when you want to ask for a review, and you can come in and change the wording here. So if you don't like the way I have worded some of the, hey, would you do me a huge favor or any of that type of stuff, you can come in here and just type and change any of the fields or verbiage that you would like to change. Once you're done perfecting the wording of your review request email, come over to this template tab, because this is really the meat and potatoes of where a lot of the automations and workflows of this project live. These are the 10 tasks that I have assigned to have happen with each closing. Next to that, column C is the type. This is basically just explaining what's going to happen on this step. So the review request is going to draft the email in my inbox. I have to actually send it. It's assigned to me, and it's due 2 days after the closing protocol checklist has been started. All right. Then step number 2 is to just in the CRM change the client to a past client, update their address, and log the close. This is a manual task that needs to be done by my admin. So when it says tell, that just means that the system is going to email my admin a reminder that says, hey, you need to update the CRM and this task is due in 1 day. Now, this list of 10 items is not sacred. You can come in here and change these items however you would like. The first thing that's easiest to change is who is going to own each task. So if this particular task, maybe you want to do that yourself, you can just click this drop-down menu and change who this is assigned to. So maybe you would assign it to yourself if you want it to be yourself. Or if you see a different task and you're like, oh, that's assigned to me and I would rather that be assigned to Kelsey, you would just click those drop-down menus and you're going to change who it assigns to. Now, the one field that's very dynamic is the sales agent, because many of you are going to have teams where the admin person is the same on every closing. So the admin's tasks stay the same on every closing, but we need to assign the reminder tasks to the sales agent, but each time the sales agent is different. So if it's a task for the sales agent, just specify sales agent in this drop-down menu, and later on a different tab, we'll specify who the sales agent is. The tasks and buy property tabs will make a lot more sense once we put in some closings. So let me go ahead and put in some sample clients in here so you can see what happens once we add some clients. Okay, so I've added a couple of sample closings. Let's just assume that I had these 2 closings with these 2 different addresses. Again, for the client email, I'm putting my own email because I don't want to accidentally trigger any real emails off to any real clients. And I want you to be able to see all of the emails that are getting composed and sent automatically once you add some of these clients. It adds the closing date. And then there's also a drop down where you can select a different sales agent for that file. So if I were to select Terry, then if I come back to this template tab, anywhere where it says sales agent for that particular closing, it's going to assign those tasks to Terry. But let's go ahead and change this back to being assigned to me. And once these 2 closings were added, it automatically opened up 10 tasks that were due. So now this task and by property tab are going to make a lot more sense. If we come over to this task tab here, this is a master list of all of the tasks that need to get completed and who they need to get completed by. I can also move to the by property tab and I can select one specific property, and it will show me all of the tasks that are still due on that specific property. Whether I'm in the Tasks tab or whether I'm in the By Property tab, I can update these tasks as they get completed. And to do that, all I really need to do is on the status column, I can mark this as done. And once it is done, it will change it to green, and it also timestamps and specified who marked it as done. So it'll be really easy to come back in later and look, well, it says that you said that you did this. So that'll be really helpful to have that done and marked as completed. You can also do it by property. So if you want to come into the by property tab and say that the review request has been completed, you can mark it as done here as well. Now, you're probably noticing that some of these tasks are happening automatically. So a couple of things that I want to show you are now actually happening in my email. So the review request, that one's not automatic, but it does draft an email in my inbox automatically. So if I come to my email inbox and I come to my drafts, I now have 2 draft emails in my inbox that are ready to hit send to these 2 clients saying, hey, I really enjoyed working with you. Would you please write a review for me on Google and Zillow? And boom, there's the links and it's ready to go. All I have to do is hit send. By the way, if you don't even want to have to hit send, we can change the code to make it so that the review request gets sent automatically. But I don't recommend that because you might occasionally have a closing. I mean, we know how it is. Sometimes the closing goes off the rails and you're like, not so sure I want to ask that client for a review. So now it's just a draft in your inbox and you can decide whether you want to send it or not. Now, a couple other things that are really interesting that are happening in my email. So if we come into my email, you're going to notice that I got a couple of emails for each of the properties. I got an email saying, hey, all of these tasks have been assigned to you. Now at this, and it even says the due dates of when each of these are done. And I can pull up the Google Sheet to begin marking the tasks as complete once I get them completed. Let's see what happens when we mark them all as completed on a single property. Now that all of the tasks have been completed for 1, 2, 3 test lane, I now received this email saying every task has been done and none were intentionally skipped. Now, I do want to point out that you will occasionally have tasks that were intentionally skipped. Perhaps you don't want to add them to your newsletter. Perhaps you don't want to give them a closing gift. So if for some reason you don't want to mark it as done, you can also mark it as skipped. So now the team has complete transparency over all of the tasks that are done and the tasks that are still outstanding, who they're assigned to. Furthermore, anyone who has an overdue or past due task that should have been completed that hasn't been marked as complete yet will receive email reminders saying, hey, you've got these incomplete tasks. Make sure you jump in there and get them marked as complete. Now, one of the other tasks that I didn't get a chance to show you yet was the adding them to your mailer/Christmas card list. So one of the things that happened when we created this sheet with all of that code automatically, if you come back to the Start Here tab, is it automatically created an address labels file for you. So you can click this also and open it, and you've already got a list of your clients along with their mailing addresses so that you can easily print address labels or something like that when you're getting ready to send out direct mail. It is technically possible to build on all sorts of additional automations here. The ones that I've done here are just really simple to try to give you an idea of what's possible. But basically, if it lives inside of Google, anywhere where you want to send an email or a calendar invite or things like that, if it lives inside of Google, Google Apps Script can control a ton of it. So all you really need to do is go back to Claude and say, gosh, I would really love it if every time I have a closing, the client's closing date could be added to my calendar automatically, so I have their home anniversary date, right? You could do that, and now anytime you have a closing, it automatically adds the date to your calendar. I'm just trying to keep this workflow kind of simple for you guys to understand how that app script works. One really important thing to remember, once you're ready to actually put this spreadsheet into practice and start using it as your SOP, don't forget to share it with your team. If you just start sending all these reminder emails saying, don't forget to mark this task as complete, don't forget to ask for this review, they won't be able to click it and go in and edit it and mark it as complete if the document hasn't been shared with them. So you're going to need to share it with them and give them editing permission to be able to edit this sheet. Before you go, the thing I want you to most walk away with, I did not write a single line of that code. I described what I wanted in plain English to Claude. That's the actual skill. Sometimes people come up to me like, Meryl, how are you so smart? How do you figure out how to build these things with Claude? I just talk to it. I go to Claude and I say, I've got this idea of something that I would like to build. How do I do it? How do I get that done? And it says, oh, well, have you considered using Google Apps Script? Here's the code, right? And it just gives you the code and you copy and paste and you follow its instructions. So I would really take a very strong look at all of your SOPs and say, which of the items in here could be automated? And if they can't be automated, how can we add better accountability and triggers and email reminders so that the whole team has transparency around what has and what hasn't been done? Because if your SOP is still just living in a binder, it's not serving anyone. Let's get it out into the AI age and make sure that we're ready to actually execute on all these steps so that no more lockboxes get left on properties. I really hope you found this video helpful, and more importantly, I really hope it gives you the courage to go out and start using Claude to really perfect and improve upon all of your SOPs.